right, now we're recording.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to We Did a Podcast, episode 38. World War Z.
39.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to We Did a Podcast, episode 39.
67.
World War Z.
World War Z.
Wait, what's up with 67?
I just wanted to toss another number at you. We'd already gone through a couple of intros. This way, if something goes wrong with one of the future intros, a very specific future intro, then I can go ahead and splice that in there.
If we mess up 67's delivery, we have it covered.
Yeah.
Yes, everyone. Hello, welcome. Today, we were kind of deciding what to do with the episode. And then, given the quarantine, let's do something viral.
Yeah.
I mean, that was basically our conversation.
We're just trying to stay on theme here.
Yes. And then we thought, you know what? World War Z, it doesn't get the love it deserves.
No, what a fantastic book. And while we're at it, the precursor, the Zombie Survival Guide. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, David.
No, we're not. I think if you read the book World War Z, then you're probably a fan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's solid.
It's got a strong fan base,
and you have to be a zombie fan in the first place to pick it up.
Yeah. But if we can convince someone who's maybe never looked into it, or who saw the movie and was like, that's okay, and that's it, this episode's for you. Give you something to read while you're stuck at home. And it's a great read. So just to start this off, World War Z is a book written by Max Brooks, who we've said on the show before is the son of Mel Brooks.
Yes.
Which is always just a weird fact.
Is it that weird, David, that people have children and those children go on to do things?
No, it's not. And I mean, Hollywood, parent, child, whatever you would call that. That's not unusual either. A lot of people who are famous have children who go on to be famous.
Oh, yeah.
The part that I think is just so funny is that Mel Brooks is just a wacky, comedian. And then Max Brooks is just real deep into the zombie thing. Just
a horror nerd.
Yeah.
And it's specifically a zombie nerd. That is his thing. That is what he is into.
I have to say, Max Brooks approaches the topic of the zombie unlike anyone else, really.
Yeah. Very methodical about it.
Very methodical. And it's so... It's not just methodical in its steps, but it's analytical on a bigger scale. He's really thinking of just every moving part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no detail that is surface level.
Yeah, and for those of you who haven't seen a ton of interviews or read into Max Brooks at all, this was his biggest fear as a child, zombies. That was the scariest thing to him. So something that he said that he has just spent a whole lot of time in his life thinking about. He spent a huge chunk of his life just thinking about zombies. Just wants to understand them better. You got to know the fear.
Know the fear. I almost forgot about this too. I was just looking up what else Max Brooks has written, because I think he's done a couple of other.
I think I saw today that he was working on or had done a Sasquatch attack series or something like that, which just sounds interesting.
That is interesting. He's also done something that's there's one more zombie survival guide thing, Recorded Attacks, which I've never read.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. But he also has a comic book called Extinction Parade, which I actually own, and I haven't read it. But it's a zombie comic book that also has vampires in it.
Interesting.
So it's a little weird. But before we get way off, before we even land on World War Z, why don't you talk about it a little bit, Frank? Give us what is World War Z?
So World War Z is a book by Max Brooks.
Okay, we've covered
who is the son. Okay, no, my bad. So World War Z is essentially this is the story in the story of what the book is, not how it was actually made. The zombie war did not actually happen. I don't want to get a War of the World situation going on. People are in their cars listening to this. They're already a little panicky. And then we start the Boogaloo, David. How bad would that look?
Oh my goodness.
That'd be terrible for the channel.
The Boogaloo? No way. And they it's funny because they mention, it gets a lot of comparisons to War of the Worlds in the way that it approaches its subject matter.
Yeah. So in this universe, this book is the byproduct of our writer working for
The UN.
Like the UN, yeah. After, what is it, 12 years after? This,
I think so.
He writes the book 12 years after, like, Victory Day. And he turned in, he goes around the world finding out how people survived, like, their zombie situations, how people succumbed to the zombie situations, how governments reacted, where everything kicked off. And they put out a report, but it's all just numbers and figures. And he complains about it to the higher ups, and they tell him, like, listen, man, like, you own your interviews. Like, just go write a book. Like, get out of my face. So he does, and that's what World War Z is. It's a oral history of the zombie apocalypse.
Yes. Every chapter is a different person, and almost every chapter is a different country, too.
Almost.
There's a few that are repeated, especially, like, at the very end. But it's so interesting to see a global version of it. And
like 100% global.
Yeah.
Like he tries to hit as many areas as he can. And he did like a lot of research I was reading, and he like as a result owned like a lot of maps. He wanted to get like terrain right and wanted to get like areas right.
Well, that's cool too, because you can tell when reading it, you can feel the research. There's so many little cultural references they tell writers to write what they know. You know what I mean? And in this case, if he wanted to do this project, there's no way to do that without just learning a whole bunch. And I think it's presented really well. It feels very authentic.
Yeah.
And I like how every character, it doesn't feel like it's all written by one person. Like people have their own voice.
That's definitely one of the things I wanted to hit. There's so many different voices, and they're all like, I don't know, they pull you right in. Like every single one of them. It's fantastic. So many different characters too. Get a bunch of different slang terms, all the different, and then you even get with different armies in different part of the world. So you get all the different like military jargon for everything.
Yeah, that's cool too. That is really cool. Oh man, there was something I wanted to touch on.
Touch on it, David. Just do it.
I'm trying to think. I got a little sidetracked in my brain. Well, this is probably a good way to go over it too. Is that the book itself is broken up into the different periods. So he's putting these interviews in line in chronological order of what the events happened. So the big sections of the book are warnings, blame, the Great Panic, turning the tide, Homefront USA, around the world and above, total war, and then goodbyes. And goodbyes is just the epilogue.
He circles back with some of the most memorable characters, gets a nice little like roundup, which I loved. That was the part where honestly I started feeling really melancholic because I'd read the book again, and it was so nice to like meet these characters again. Yeah. And just to see, and it's all over, David.
And I haven't read this in years, but a lot of the stories left a big impression on me. Like I remembered most of the stories, and going through it again, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And this one, but it was cool to read a couple that I had kind of forgotten about.
Yeah, for sure.
And being like, man, this one's really intense.
The whole canine thing I forgot about, which is insane because I love dogs so much, but I forgot about all that stuff.
Yeah. And that one's really good. And now I kind of remember what I was going to say. What I really like about his approach too, as far as setting. So we're literally all over the world. I don't know any other zombie story that's tackled it this way before. Like occasionally we get ones that are set in different locations. Like Danny Boyle did the England zombie movie, and there's Japanese zombie movies and a couple other outliers and things like that. But usually,
and at the biggest, it's like a country.
Yeah,
like
it's
and
always
you
a
don't
country.
even get to see it. They just tell you what's going. It's also happening in the country.
And if you get something like Day of the Dead or Land of the Dead, where it's really far gone, you might get an overshot of like, oh, the whole world's gone, or there might be some line of dialogue. Well, we haven't heard from Paris in 2 years, and that was the last transmission. Blah blah blah. But to really get to see all the different cultures and how it would go down is so cool. And it just really bugs me because I think back to like when Walking Dead announced that they were doing Fear the Walking Dead. I was like, man, there are so many ways they could go with this. They could do Walking Dead in like Alaska, or they could do Walking Dead, you know, wherever they wanted to do, or wherever they wanted to go and get a totally separate story. Of course, Fear the Walking Dead isn't that. It's like Mexico and then now Texas, which being from Texas is cool. You know what I mean? But
it's got to be scarier because everything's bigger in Texas. So I imagine the zombies are too.
The zombies are all bigger too, yeah. But I'm just bummed because it could have been even more removed. Like Texas and Georgia, yeah, they're different, but it's the United States.
Yeah.
It's not, you know.
Think a little broader.
And then they announced they're doing another Walking Dead spinoff. And what I would have really loved Walking Dead, the TV show, to do is do like an anthology series where every episode is just a different story somewhere else. And of course, that would be a production nightmare. Like, it'd probably be very expensive to do a show like that.
Oh, yeah. Versus just like shooting in Georgia all the time.
Yeah. But it would be so interesting. And honestly, like, we're going to get into it too. We're going to talk about the movie. That's like the biggest issue with the movie is before it even started. There's no way to sum up this book into a movie.
No.
It's too long. The format is just wrong. It needs to be shot like a docuseries.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
And presented in that fashion.
A limited Netflix series would have been like the perfect place for a direct adaptation.
And I just mentioned all these different chapters, you know what I mean? Like the 7-8 sections they have in this book. Each of those could be a season, or each of them could be 2 or 3 episodes. It depends on how you want to do it. You know what I mean? But there was no way to do that kind of ramp up, because that's the awesome part. It takes a long time for it to be full blown, panic.
Yeah. Full blown, hey, the army's trying to grab everybody and go as far west or east, wherever the closest spot is.
Yeah. Okay, well, as far as the book goes, I think it'd be way too much for us to just like go story by story. You know
no,
what I mean?
Definitely.
That'd be insane.
I just picked out some of my favorite characters and stories.
And that's what I thought we would do. Yeah,
nice.
Cool.
Yeah, because my goodness. And then, I mean, we blew through this book, what, in 2-3 days?
Yes, but I have...
Because we had decided to do it a while ago, and at some point this weekend we were like, yo, we got to read this book, though.
And that's another thing, too. World War Z is 341 pages. It's pretty lengthy, but it is an easy read. It
makes you want to keep going.
Well.
You definitely can't stop in the middle of a story, and you just want to know the next part.
And the chapters, each of the story segments are pretty short.
Yeah.
Like the long ones are maybe 8 or 9 pages, but a lot of them are just like 4 or 5 pages.
And those long ones are juicy too.
The long ones are juicy.
They're always worth it.
But it's so, it's a good read. And I think there's a lot of people who are maybe our age, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older, who are like in their 20s.
Maybe the exact same age. Maybe they were born like the same day and time.
What?
Oh my.
Maybe
we were separated at birth.
What? But I think there's a lot of people who are around our age.
If you think you're one of our long lost twins, send us an email at davidandfrankandbeans@gmail.com.
I look a lot like this guy, don't I? I think there's a lot of people around our age who maybe used to be really into reading, and for one reason or another don't
AR
read as
points,
much anymore. Dude. Yeah, maybe it was the AR points not being in our life to entice us. Maybe Netflix ruined all of our free time, or
listicles. Maybe listicles like ruined our brain somehow.
When I was in college, I just felt at one point I was like, man, I'm reading so much, and I don't want to read anything else. I don't want to read anything I have to read, and I don't want to read anything else. But I'm just saying that, especially if you're a horror fan, World War Z is just a comfy book to sink into, because it just goes by so quick, and it's not like a baby book. You know what I mean? You're not reading a tween novel.
And there are horrors.
Yeah.
There are some like horrible events that happen throughout this book. It's like most of the world the apocalypse almost happens.
Yeah, right on. Well, it does happen. I think.
Well, no, like it didn't end, but boy, it almost did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, yeah. What is it? Apocalypse is a world-ending event, right? That's apocalypse.
Like it almost.
It was as close as it got, and then they brought it back.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go through some of these stories, man. Why don't we trade off? Because I wrote down a couple too.
Let's see. I went chronologically because I was just, as I was reading it, I was jotting down notes. But I wonder if it'd be so cool if we both had the same first. But somebody I wanted to talk about was T. Sean Collins, the mercenary who had been hired to, like, he had some super high profile like dude. So all the celebrities were at their house. They built this compound. Yeah, man.
I wrote that one down too. It wasn't my first one, but I wrote that one down.
Well, let's go chronologically. Who's your first then?
Okay, well, my first one, and man, I didn't write down the name, so I feel like a schlub compared to you. But
David.
This is particularly the story about the vaccine that's created early on.
Phalanx.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So when the zombie outbreak starts happening in the civilized world.
I mean, screw that guy's name. There's a reason he's hiding out in like Antarctica. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's where this one is. He's interviewing some guy off in some remote base because basically this dude just created a bogus drug, and he was like, "So what?"
Well, no, it wasn't bogus. It cured rabies.
It cured rabies.
Yeah.
It didn't say what kind of rabies. It didn't say that this was supposed to be the rabies, but it was just, man, like what I love about Max Brooks as a writer in the story is that he just takes these little dark thoughts that you have about how people act in the apocalypse. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then he just elaborates an idea around it. He's like, you know what? People are just greedy and selfish. People are wanting to make money off your fear. And what would that look like in the zombie apocalypse? And then he writes a chapter about it. And it all just feels so real. It feels like, this could totally happen.
100%.
Yeah.
He's like that. What's his face? That
like-
jerk with the.
It's like Alex Jones selling snake oil for coronavirus.
Or no, that kid who was like the CEO of the pharmacy
Martin
company.
Shkreli, the farmer bro.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't know if you heard about this. Alex Jones legit was selling these pills on his website, saying, "Oh, these will protect you from coronavirus."
Oh my god. No, I didn't
like
hear that.
he's the real life version of this guy, except that coronavirus doesn't turn you into a zombie. But
not yet.
I just love that story. I thought that one was really cool. But yeah, let's get on to this mercenary one. So the mercenary one's a little bit further.
Yeah, so the mercenary one, it's further on into the story. Because I mean, before that, we really just get like the doctor who was like kind of on the ground in the initial outbreak in China and stuff like that. Good stuff, you know what I mean? But I mean, not till I hit like Oh no, go. What?
Sorry,
what
but just to chime in real quick, it's really crazy that it's China that it starts off with, just like this coronavirus thing. And when this first started going down, and China was, it was all in the news that China was keeping information. You know what I mean? They might not be presenting accurate data, and it's like what happens in this book. China's just being super secretive,
very secretive,
and then this outbreak starts in China, and by the time that there's so many people there that it gets out of hand, it can't be controlled.
Ooh, and I didn't write them down, but there's one really cool story about the China, the like human trafficker. The guy was like smuggling refugees out.
Oh yeah,
and he talks about like, well, like that's how a lot of like that's how this thing spread. You know what I mean? Like I snuck people out of here. I made really good money doing it. But anyways, T-Sean Collins, really like rough character. You know what I mean? He's like typical like mercenary dude.
He's the Mandalorian from
like,
the TV
he doesn't
show.
say it, but this guy has like really coarse like 5 o'clock stubble. You know what I mean? Huge chin.
He's what's his face? He's Frank. He's Frank Grizzo. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Wait, Greco?
Frank Greco?
Frank Grizzo?
Oh, from you're talking about
from The Purge.
Yes,
man.
from The Purge. What's that dude's name? Anyways,
Frank Grillo.
Grillo.
Yeah, if they redo World War Z, that's who needs to be
T-Sean Collins.
Yes.
Nice. So yeah, he's got like this high profile like Hollywood. I think he's like a producer or something like that. But he's built this compound for the celebrities, and he's like wired it up with video cameras to make it like a reality show. You know what I mean? So as a result of them showing everybody like, look how safe we are. This is where we are. They get just overrun with people trying to like get some of that safety. You know what I mean? They think it's a zombie horde at first, and then they realize they're like running and climbing and stuff. And it's like people are trying to get in there, and everybody loses it. You know what I mean? He describes all these people there. He like calls out Paris Hilton, but Max Brooks does a really good job, I'm sure, because his lawyers told him this is the way he had to do it, of like not naming names.
Yeah.
But I think I jotted down some of the people that were supposed to be there. Paris Hilton, Bill Maher, and the leathery old blonde who I thought was supposed to be his political enemy, which I felt like had to be Ann Coulter, right?
You would think.
Right?
But you would think that might be someone on another channel.
Yeah, maybe.
It's hard. We'd have to look at who the pundits were in 2007.
Yeah, that's
it
what
might
we
be
have to
someone
do.
who's gone.
True. But anyways, like they get overrun. A lot of people are just like they're pampered celebrities. You know what I mean?
Wait, is that guy Bill Maher or Bill O'Reilly?
Ooh, it could have been O'Reilly.
Oof, this gets confusing.
This does get confusing.
But if it is Bill Maher, it's definitely Ann Coulter.
Yeah, right. Could be. But they describe like personal assistants turning on like their masters. You know what I mean? In this Last Day of the Rome situation, they talk about like people just totally losing it. They talk about these two supposed characters who we don't know who they are, but the two political pundits just like going at it, like just going for it. You know what I mean? Having themselves one last tussle in the hay, if you will. But yeah, he like bails out of there.
Oh yeah, and the place is now useless.
No, it is. Yeah, it's totally overrun. It's not safe anymore.
Yeah, and I'm sure once he left, it got even worse.
Yeah, I think like a grenade goes off and blows a huge chunk out of something.
Have you ever read the Edgar Allan Poe short story, The Mask of the Red Death?
No, I'm not.
So this is one thing about this book.
But
that
I just got
noticed.
a book of short stories of Edgar Allan Poe, so it might be in my drawer at home right now.
It's probably in there too. This is like a really famous one. I feel like there's a couple stories in here where you really get a feel for what could be the inspiration. And again, this would make such a good TV series because every story is just so confined and with its own like kind of flavor and different aspect. It's just so interesting. But Mask of the Red Death is like, basically there's this plague in the city that's killing everyone and everyone's dying. But up on top of the hill, there's this mansion with all the rich people who are having a party and it's walled off. But I don't want to get into the spoilers, but it's very similar. The ending is somewhat the same, but if you have that short story book, dude, you have to read Mask of the Red Death.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check it out.
That is metal. That was really
I have a little bit of time for that right now.
Oh, right. Yeah, we have just a little bit of extra time on our hands.
What's another one of your favorite characters / stories, David?
You know what? Before getting into my next story, I just do want to...
No.
I got to bring in one more thing.
Okay.
I got to be honest with you.
That's fine.
I started reading the book again. And then, not obviously Animal Crossing came out, which was a problem. But I was like, man, I don't know if I can... Like, I'm either going to need to spend 2 days just sitting in a chair really reading.
Yeah, that's really how I got it done.
Yeah,
I just read.
I did a little bit of research online. And then I found out that there was an audiobook version of World War Z.
Nice.
So then I was like, well, let me check it out. Because I've actually never
How
listened.
was the narrator, though?
I've never listened. Well, I'm going to get into that. I've never listened to an audiobook before. Like, I've heard them, obviously, but I've never, like, started one and finished one. But I look up the World War Z audiobook, and I was instantly like, okay, I'm signing up for a free trial of Audible. I'm going to listen to this instead. It is narrated by Max Brooks. He is the interviewer, which is cool. It is a little bit weird because he's not a fantastic performer. I think he does a decent job. But every character has their own voice actor.
Oh, that's cool.
And most of the accents are like pretty authentic. There's a couple that are a little bad, but then so they released an abridged version when the book came out. And I don't know if it was a budget thing, but because of the movie, they went back and did all of it. So if you are going to check out the audiobook, make sure you don't look up just World War Z audiobook. You need to look, it's like the complete edition or something like that. Because you can also listen to it as 2 separate ones. They released the supplementary thing, but then it'll all be out of order.
Yeah.
So you got to find the World War Z complete audiobook. But anyway, some of the people they bring in, dude, and I'm just going to read a couple of the big ones right here. Nathan Fillion, Simon Pegg, Mark Hamill, Martin Scorsese, John Turturro, and Alan Alda, man.
My goodness.
And then a bunch of these other people are just famous voice actors. So there's just like some heavy
like
hitted
if you
actors.
saw all those names on a movie, you'd be like, yo, what is this movie going to be?
Exactly, dude. So when I listened to this thing again, it was so cool.
I feel like I'm just going to listen to it now.
You have to. It's like
just
10
take
hours
one more
long.
run through.
You know what I mean? It's long. But man, some of the performances are really, really good.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So anyways, I wanted to bring that up. And I think it was because of the movie that I got the full release. So, you know, I have some gripes with the film that we'll get into, of course.
Oh, we'll get there.
But there is like, that is such a positive to me that out of that, and I guess because of all the buzz, you know, they're like, let's release the full version.
And you know what? I bet some people picked up the book because of the movie, whether they read it or not.
Exactly. And a lot of the supplemental ones, the newer ones they put in, those were really big names. So like some huge names attached themselves to it. But anyway, yeah, the audiobook is fantastic, everyone. You got to check out the audiobook. Great cast. Anyways, back to the aforementioned discussion. So I was checking out, my next one I have is Yonkers.
Yeah.
You can't talk about World War Z without talking about Yonkers.
The Yonkers stuff is good stuff.
So this is like when the humans really find out they're in trouble. Like already cities have fallen, and this is the first big battle, like the big organized battle where the military is going to take on the Z's.
Supposed to be their big show of force. It's gonna not just win them ground, but the morale.
And now this is the only part where I'm going to get into like some criticism of World War Z, I think, is that a few of these stories kind of push the line for me on what I think would be believable or not. Like, because basically what happens in this battle is that the military, its head is just in the wrong place, and they're trying to fight the war like they're fighting conventional warfare.
Yeah.
So they're digging trenches and they're doing all these things that like don't make sense for fighting zombies. And later on in the book, you know, they adapt some like old school fighting styles. They go back to like Revolutionary War tactics almost that are super effective because that's how it was in the American Revolution. You know what I mean? You're marching against a giant wall of people. Like that's the fighting that you need to do. The only thing that I don't get is that I get that the military is like bureaucratic and maybe it got all locked up and they were like, this is the plan and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I could see that happening, but it's almost a little too unbelievable that they wouldn't realize that some of these weapons would be ineffective in this battle. Just being like, we know that headshots kill them. Everyone at that point has had to have killed one zombie.
Yeah.
And said, hey, this isn't going to work, guys. Like we should do this maybe. And there's a few times in the book like this where I'm kind of pushed, where I'm like, I don't know if the military would let it get this far. Like, if zombies just showed up right now, I feel like we would have it more or less covered.
Yes, but this book came out in 2006, so we're talking about the cabinets of like the early aughts.
Oh, and you know what? There's a lot of criticism of the Bush administration in this book, man. If you guys are like big Bush fans,
political party Max Brooks is associated
I
with.
wonder what he could be. I wonder who he voted for. No, it's pretty obvious. Okay, so if
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
If that's the criticism, then though, you could argue that there were some major military missteps,
like the war in Iraq.
Yeah. So yeah, some of it pushes the realm of believability for me, but on most of them, you can kind of give it like the benefit of the doubt. None of it is like breaking logic for me, like some of the movie is, but
he stretches.
And I think as long as you can deal with that, if you're a little flexible, then you'll be okay. But yeah, Yonkers is cool because it's just such an outstanding defeat.
Yeah.
They're using all of these super expensive weapons that make the US military the biggest power in the world, and it's just totally ineffective, and they're getting wiped out.
In a lot of cases, it's like making things worse, like making zombies that are on fire, like zombies that crawl, so like you don't see them until they're chomping at your ankles.
Exactly. Yeah, that one's really good.
Oh yeah, that's a really fun. Like reading it, I was excited to get there, and when I got there, I was like, oh boy,
yeah,
here we go, Yonkers. Somebody I wanted to mention in the book was Paul Rediker. He's the one who comes up with the Rediker plan.
Yeah.
He is like a Afrikaner apartheid like hero villain. And they go out and find him to come up. They know he's like the most brutal but most effective like planner because he doesn't take emotion into account. He's just like, this is what it's going to take to get where we need to go.
Yeah.
And he comes up with a plan of like how to evacuate the people who you can still save while using the people you can't save to like cover the retreat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is really heartless, but it's what like keeps the apocalypse from happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he also is like, one of these things is really cool because in the interview, you're not talking to Paul Rediker, you're talking to this other dude, you know what I mean? Or he doesn't let you know. And at the end, like through the whole thing, he's talking about like, nobody knew this guy better than I did. Like I worked very close with him, like the interviewee. And at the end, you find out that like, this is Paul Rediker and that he's in a psychiatric hospital. Like his identity dies because he can't like deal with like the decisions he made to save the world. Like it broke him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sentencing all those people to death to save humanity. All of that weight
was on him, even though it was the right decision to make. A hard decision, but the right one to make. That is such a cool twist for a TV show too. Yes. It seems like an end of like a Twilight Zone episode or something. Where you're like, what? And yeah, that kind of thing is totally missing from its other iterations of World War Z. But the Rediker thing is really cool. And that's an early on one too, right? That's like...
Yeah, it's early on because like it gets mentioned throughout the whole book. Like our version of the Rediker plan, or like, yeah, when they didn't want to follow the Rediker plan, when we finally had to realize the Rediker plan was our only hope.
And that part is interesting because in the book, it's super disjointed. Every chapter, the only thing that's in common is the narrator and the interviewer.
The fact that there's a zombie apocalypse happening.
And he doesn't really chat anyone up. There's not a lot of dialogue for him. It's mostly just questions.
It's very Joe Rogan interviewer. He knows when to just shut up and let it ride.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
It's like Joe Rogan interviewing Alex Jones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just with way less like DMT and aliens. But he does connect with a bunch of mentions like that. And as the book goes on, you'll hear a little story. Someone will mention an event that happened in another chapter. And it's just cool. It's cool.
It really ties everything into the world. You know what I mean?
Really
you feel like you're there. What you got next, David? Who's up next?
I have and I wrote it as the Donner Party chapter.
Okay.
And then underneath that, I put only one letter away from dinner.
That's a solid note, David. That's a solid note taking.
So there's this chapter of a family. And I'm so sorry. I don't get the names like Frank does.
From this point on, I start missing some names a little bit, but
it's a family with like a dad who's just kind of like a soft man. And he buys a gun. Zombies are coming into their town. He's got a family. He's got a little girl.
He convinces them all to leave like their safe home and go north.
Yeah.
North.
Because that's what the news is saying.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to go north. So then he's been saving up gas since the beginning of the apocalypse. They manage to get all the way up there. And then they get to this like lake way up north. And there's a bunch of the people there. And it's just like everyone's partying and sharing food.
It's summer camp.
And everyone's having a good time. Yeah. It's just summer at the lake. You know what I mean? And then Jason comes in the night. No, I'm just joking.
It's winter.
It's Camp Crystal Lake. But anyway, it gets colder and people's food starts running out. And the gas in their cars that they drove there on, they're using it to start fires and to cook. And then next thing you know, there's no more food and people are stealing from each other and
starving to death.
And starving to death. And then it ends up like people eating each other, which is always just such a great zombie. Like whenever you get there in a zombie storyline, it's like, okay.
And the interviewee's like a little girl at the time. Like,
oh yeah.
Like they trade her little radio, her survival radio to somebody in the RV to like feed her for some human stew.
Yes. Human meat.
Yeah. Which makes me think of Hannibal Rising. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen Hannibal Rising. Ooh. That's the only one I haven't seen.
Gotta watch it.
I'll have to. But yeah, see, and this was a great one too. It's like, man, this is the Donner Party.
Yeah.
Like this chapter is a group of travelers are stuck in the wilderness in the winter and they have no other option.
At some point, you do what you got to do.
So a lot of these stories are grounded in reality, but it helps it. It helps it. And this one, man, the tensions just keep rising throughout the chapter.
That one's a slow burn.
That one is a slow burn, man.
Because it's like the little girl doesn't, or like she didn't fully understand, you know what I mean? Like at the top. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good stuff.
That is good stuff. I love that chapter. That's another great one.
A couple of the things I wanted to point out next. We're all from the same interviewee, and I didn't catch his name. He's one of the army guys who's like out there and all that stuff. He's part of the crew that does the sweeps when they're kind of get everything back together. They're like sweeping across the country and they're trying to clear everything up. And he's just talking about like everything that they saw and all the different, like how Zeke, as they refer to him, or G, wasn't the only thing to be afraid of out there. There were a lot of other dangers out in the world.
Yeah.
Some of those dangers, like the feral children, like the kids who had just like got left out there. One of the interviewees is a feral child. And she's like stuck at that age. She's like talking.
Her brain's broken.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah. Because they were just like out surviving on their own. But he talks about like how a lot of them were like, at this point, they had been out there for like 10 years. You know what I mean? They were like grown and they would straight up like charge you because they were like feral.
Yeah.
They were like wild children. You know what I mean?
Children, yeah.
That they had to like try and catch and rehabilitate. But some of the dudes he was with like died from them. Another one were the Quislings, like the people who couldn't deal with everything happening, so their brains broke and they got like not Munchausen.
Stockholm.
Yeah, they got like Stockholm syndrome essentially, and they became zombies, like not physically but mentally, and they didn't take care of themselves, and they would like bite you. There were stories of like people, like Quislings in crowds of zombies, and then a zombie would realize it wasn't a zombie, and while they were being eaten, they wouldn't like scream, they wouldn't yell, they would just get eaten.
Stay there.
Yeah, because they were already dead in their head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that stuff's crazy. They also talk about, I don't think it was the same guy, but it's some, I think it's some psychiatrist or something that is now working for like the UN. They talk about ADS or asymptomatic. No, that one was it's the director that he's talking to who mentions this, because there's a director who makes like these propaganda films. You know what I mean, to combat
like
it.
Reefench style films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's called asymptomatic demise syndrome, or apocalyptic despair syndrome, depending on who you talk to. But people would essentially like give up because they didn't see the point of like tomorrow, and they would just die in their sleep.
That
like
happens
Sid
in
style.
real life.
Yeah. It happens in like people in Japan like just drop dead. You know what I mean? But there's a filmmaker who like just goes and like films little victories, you know what I mean, and re-edits them so they look a little bit better, and adds some B-rolls so they look a little bit better. But he like actually curves it. Like at first he thinks he's like not a success, but it's like a huge thing. Like he brings the number down by like 50% or something crazy like that, which I just thought was pretty cool.
And I'm pretty sure he's Scorsese in the audiobook.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty
makes
sure
sense.
it is him. I could be wrong. What was the one you were talking about right before that?
Dude, I bet you Scorsese propaganda would be nuts. I was talking about the Quislings, or the army dude who was like sweeping the stuff.
And then there's a couple more in that list too. There's the RCs, the Robinson Crusoes.
Yeah, and the Lamos.
The Lamos who were last mans on Earth.
Yeah, because those were the dangerous one, but the Robin Crusoes were just like, oh, I thought we were the only ones. Like, thank God you're here.
Yeah,
like,
I'm stranded on a desert island. I'm so glad. Thank you.
But the Lamos, the last man on Earth.
Yeah. Mad Max style stuff going on. Fiefdoms, sorry.
Or we talk about like people who just like had made their own, like some of them were like larger groups too. They had made their own little kingdom and stuff like that. Or there was that one, this dude mentions one like settlement that they came up where they were straight rogue, like they were not having it. And it's in earlier, another soldier talks about them having to abandon that place.
Oh yeah.
The army calls in and tells them like, you have to retreat. And they're like, what about the civilians? And like, you do not bring the civilians, like retreat now.
Retreat. Yeah. And everyone's all upset. They're yelling at him and screaming at him.
They're trying to like hop onto the tanks and everything as they get out of there. But I just thought it was really cool because that's what would happen. You know what I mean? They would totally, they were abandoned by their government. Why would they let them come back in and quote unquote rescue them?
I think it's interesting because in a lot of ways, World War Z, especially now The Walking Dead, the comic is done. There's a lot of parallels as far as like how society breaks down and how it kind of comes back together. But the difference is like World War Z is a very militaristic take on it. Whereas in Walking Dead, the military's gone in a second and it never comes back.
Yeah.
And it's just like people. It's more of like a people's movement.
Mm-hmm.
Where in World War Z, it's like you're really following the military and what the UN's doing and what the government leaders are doing.
The remnants of the government.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And maybe if you're a Walking Dead fan or vice versa, it's worth checking out the stories because they're almost exactly the same. Like start of the outbreak, although Walking Dead skips that really, if you think about it. But it's like all the way through and then the rebuilding at the end. So I don't know. I think that's pretty interesting. No one else has ever done that.
No.
It's never been to that scale. Like George Romero got close, but he never finished it. Probably should have stopped 3 or 4 movies too before the end. I have a couple more chapters in here. Do you remember the one with the paratrooper who lands?
Yeah, she crashes in the swamp.
And then she's talking with the Mets fan. Mm-hmm. What do they call that again? Watch or?
She is a Skywatcher.
Skywatcher. So someone's talking to her through a radio. That one's a really good story. It's very long.
Yeah, nice twist.
Yeah, the twist at the end's pretty nice. One of my favorites, dude, is the Japanese otaku character.
Yes.
And it's just so funny because the otaku guy is just like so wimpy. Like to the
He's
point
useless. He talks about how useless he found out he was.
He like scratches his hand and he's like, I've never experienced pain because I've never played sports
He had never like seen his own blood before.
And I was like, how's that possible, man?
Yeah.
But then the more you think about this character, it's just like he never left his computer.
Just been in front of the computer, yeah.
And then all of a sudden he has to basically scale down a building prison style, like with bed sheets.
Yeah,
it's just so
he goes
cool.
down like 4 floors, but I think it takes him like 3 days.
And the Japanese, it does. And the Japanese stories are interesting too, because you get 2 characters from Japan who are just like staunchly different.
Yeah,
it's like one of them is like a person who's like 20 years old right now in Japan, grown up on like technology and is totally
his whole world is on the internet.
Yeah, he's completely plugged in. And then the other one is like a guy who survived the nuclear bombs.
He's blind because he like saw the flash.
Yeah. And
he's been outcast like in the caste system, you know what I mean? He's like a burden.
Yeah, apparently it's just no one.
It's like a big burden he carries his whole life. He's like, I'm worthless.
And he's just so traditional and just like honor, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, that story is probably like, since my original reading, one of the stories that sticks out the most in my mind. Like it's always been so fresh in there.
Yeah, that one has always stuck with me. That one is really, really good. Man, I mean, there's so many other good stories, obviously.
Like one of the best things is when he's interviewing the South Korean soldier about like how North Korea just like vanishes.
Yeah.
The whole North Korea thing is like super cool.
That chapter is great.
That chapter is dope.
And it ends on such an ominous note. Like, where are the North Koreans? Because basically, when it starts to get real, North Korea shuts off all communications, shuts the borders down. And then that's it.
Well, it was like before even South Korea was panicking, they were talking about how like they would just see like a little bit less air traffic and like a little bit less this, a little bit less this. People would start with, there weren't people working in the fields anymore. The camps were being emptied. And then one day they went for like shift change at the DMZ and the soldiers went in and no more soldiers came back out. And that's the last anybody ever saw the North Koreans.
It's just done.
Yeah.
And then it ends with like
to the day like of this book's like release in this fictional world, they still don't know.
Like, and they say something like, yeah, there could be like 13 million North Korean zombies just trapped in a bunker underground.
Or like maybe he's like, maybe he knows everything's done, but now this is a perfect situation. Like how like it was the last thing he could take away from his people, and like he is a god now.
Yeah, and they don't ever need to know.
No.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
That's good.
One of my other favorite stories, I didn't even jot it down because it's also one of the things that stuck out the most, is the Chinese nuclear submarine crew.
Ooh. Dude, that one is a journey.
Oh yeah, man, that takes you all over the place.
If it was a
both
TV show,
geographically and emotionally,
it'd be a 2-parter if it was a TV show.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, like, that one is crazy.
And then also a crazy, awesome twist ending. You know what I mean?
And dude, again, I mean, it's just like Max Brooks is so inventive.
Yeah.
Because the zombie genre, if you're not, if you're not really trying to push something, it's an incredibly limiting genre. Like, how many stories can you tell? But Max Brooks has just written like 50 different stories that are all just like some of these just entirely fresh takes on this whole subgenre. It's just amazing to see someone come up with like this many ideas, and a lot of them are just like perfect.
Like so solid.
When they run into this like sea shanty town, because all these different ships have just left and now they have nowhere to go, and it's like, here we are afloat. We're going to create a barter economy. It's going to be Waterworld.
Yeah, there's a bunch of trade going on. The nuclear submarine hooks up a bunch of power lines to all the other like boats and little parts of the camp and like give them power. That's their contribution.
Mm-hmm. I also love the one in the Himalayas, man. When they're going to blow up that like a bunch of different people
when they're on that crazy mountain road.
Yeah.
And oh my God. Dude, that's a good story.
And I can't even imagine just like seeing that. I can't imagine how intense it would be.
Insane. Like a really sea of people.
Yeah.
So nuts. And just like so many different like war heroes and so many different stories of valor. So good. One of the other stories I really like, or the one of the ones I forgot about, was the canine handlers, and then they're just talking about like how they were trained together and stuff, and how crazy the bond was. Like the canine handlers had the highest suicide rate out of like any other like military like role.
Yeah, if their dog died or whatever.
Yeah. Because they were just like so bonded. And then the interview, he's talking about like, he's like, and you know what, before this, like I hated dogs. Like I refused to pet them.
Yeah.
Like I didn't like them at all.
dog owners.
And then the
There's
whole time
always
he's just got his little dash hound, like his little old dash hound.
Yeah, because they would use small dogs to trip zombies up.
Yeah, or they would use them like in the cities because they could crawl
And
around
they could crawl into things, yeah,
And they
they
had
could crawl
like
into
their big
pipes.
old escort dogs.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
dude.
it makes sense that would be... Like, dogs are the way to go. And dogs are integral to the story from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because they sense the unnatural, threat of zombies. So people would be sniffed to see if they were infected or not.
And the dogs would just like go wild. They had to keep the dogs in cages because they would just like instantly want to attack.
Yeah, even the trained ones would hurt their master, even.
Oh yeah. In one of the Russian things, the whole little Russian arc is really cool because it starts off with the female interviewee talking about like the decimations. Like there's a little bit of a revolt because they know the government's not telling them what's actually happening, and things start to get a little bit crazy. They want answers, so the Russian government shows up and just kills 1 out of 10, and they make them decide like who's going to do it and all that. But that's the same soldier who like at the end is like, now that everything's over, her duty to the mother Russia is just being a baby farm. You know what I mean? That whole thing's crazy.
Yeah, in Russia, democracy kills you.
Yeah, but they do shout out the Mosin Nagant, which I was very excited about because
that is so funny.
I was like, woo!
Oh, do you know our whole argument about
what up?
Mosin, or...
Yes.
Yeah, apparently both pronunciations are accepted.
Nice. I accept that.
And it's one of those weird, because Russian like translation, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because of those crazy language.
Yeah. I just thought that was so interesting. Yeah, I love that gun. I also just love how Russia it is. There are a lot of stories where it's just like, okay, you're just doing exactly what this country did in World War II. And that's like the Russian storyline.
100%.
We're just going to throw everyone we have at them, and that's it. But at the end, Russia's happy. They're like, hey.
Russia's like a superpower again.
Yeah.
Like they are.
Russia.
Yeah. No one will ever hurt us again.
Yeah, for reals. If I was a zombie, I would not want to be in Russia.
No.
Freezing.
Yeah.
And
it's a bum gig.
Russians are crazy.
Yeah.
If there's anything we've learned on this channel through our 38 episodes, it's how crazy Russians are. But those are good. The Russian stories are good.
The Russian stories are nice.
Man, there was another one too where I felt like, wow.
I mean, Israel, dude. Like the whole Israel thing. That stuff's dope.
I mean, really the issue is like, how many of these aren't good stories?
I can't think of any that were like stinkers. There's some that are like, okay, like that was whatever, you know what I mean? And they're real short too.
Yeah.
Like the ones that are whatever, they're a tiny chunk.
And those that
it's just
are
to give
short,
you a little taste of something.
It's like a little bit of narrative too.
Yeah.
Because the narrative is being pushed through this thing. Since it's chronological, you're like seeing how all the pieces are, and how did that, thing that happened 2 chapters ago, how did it affect the rest of the world and everything? So that part feels really good, but
it's all integral.
He knows when to push it, and he knows when to dial it back and make it something real short and sweet.
Yeah.
What a good
it's
read,
all good
dude.
stuff. Even the stuff
read.
that's like doesn't stick out in your memory, it serves its purpose. Just like you were saying. That's good.
And what's really cool too, because I mean, now that we've talked really a lot about this book, towards the end, you start getting these just awesome like ways that they're killing zombies, like tricking them from falling off buildings, and the kind of like phalanx shooting style, and the weapon they create, the Lobo,
Yeah.
the lobotomizer to kill the zombies.
Yeah, they talk about all the different like and that's one of the cool things, because one of the interviewees is this person who's in charge of getting all the information like and disseminating it to people. You know what I mean? Like this is how they're winning this fight this way. This is how they're winning this fight this way, and everybody's like working together. At the end of it, most of the world anyways realizes like, hey, we're all in this together. Like this is the only way we're gonna get out of this together.
Exactly. But a lot of this logic and reasoning come from his previous book, The Zombie Survival Guide. And it's like the things that he tells you in the book, like this is the way to do it, is how his characters react in World War Z, which I thought was interesting. And if you read The Zombie Survival Guide, way at the back, they have, what is it called? They put at the end of this book. I'm trying to find the name of it. It's basically like the dry run of World War Z, essentially.
Yeah, it's like attacks through history.
Recorded attacks.
Nice.
This is not a list of all zombie attacks throughout history. This simply chronicles all attacks for which the information has been recorded, survived, and been released to the author of this book. And it's like a little taste of it. It's how the Romans reacted to zombies, and that part I thought was really cool. Like you can feel the idea behind World War Z. Like he wrote this book and was like, I know what I need to do next. I need to do
yeah.
like a full-blown narrative.
Highly recommend Zombie Survival Guide as well. You could say I'm a bit of a fan of a Zombie Survival Guide tattoo.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you do have one. The Zombie Survival Guide is like an enjoyable book.
Yeah.
Because it's just written like a regular survival guide, but it just takes itself so seriously. And when you read it, you're like, wow, that makes a lot of sense.
100% straight faced.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no tongue in cheekness at all. And I would say World War Z is also 100%.
Yeah. Like there's
serious.
some decent laughs, but that's because those characters are funny. They're entertaining.
But yeah, I think that you should check out both of these books, man. Check them both out. But start with World War Z, I think. And if you really like it, because the Zombie Survival Guide's kind of fluffy. You know what I mean? It's not like you're going to read it and then be like, oh, I need to read the next one. I feel like World War Z is the more gripping of the two books. But, it's just me. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you for your sense, David.
Thank you.
And honestly, with that pretty much sums it up for me with the book, David. The ending's dope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It makes you... a good book should make you want to miss the story, and that's exactly how I feel when I finish this book.
They straight up do the Band of Brothers ending, where they just like go back and catch up with everyone.
Yeah.
And you get these little snippets, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And then,
it's so awe.
Yeah, it's really good.
And not overly awe either. It's perfect. And I mean, I guess for those of you that prefer the new trilogy versus the original trilogy, or the prequels to the original trilogy of Star Wars, get a lot of just like political bickering in there, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
That's the joke I was trying to get to.
You got there eventually.
Rough.
Well, let's transition to the movie, man. So the World War Z film.
Let's get into it. David, one day you and I are enjoying our day together. We're just having a good old time doing whatever we were doing that day. And we saw a movie trailer. And that movie trailer was for World War Z. David, how did you feel after seeing that trailer?
I remember instantly being upset because even in the Zombie Survival Guide, and I was trying to find it, they take shots at the running zombie. They're like, zombies don't run. Zombies are dead.
Yeah.
And the dead walk slowly. Actually, in the Zombie Survival Guide, visually stunning weapons, physically impossible action sequences, larger than life human characters, and above all, magical, invincible, even comical ghouls have all added their colors to the controversial rainbow that is the zombie movie. It's funny. It's like Max Brooks would have really criticized the product that came out. And I think he's maybe not totally vocal about it all the time because of, obviously, his name is on it. As opposed to if it had been a movie he had nothing to do with. Right away, I knew there was going to be something wrong with the movie, though. It was just like the running zombie thing was so much.
It's so different from the book, just at a base level. That like initial reaction, you're just like, well, this is going to be totally, because that's action fear, you know what I mean? Whereas like classic zombie fear, the fear doesn't come from like how well they're ferocious, but you know what I mean? It's their sheer numbers and the fact that they do not stop ever.
It's that you're going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's the overwhelming force of their tenacity and their numbers.
And like Yonkers doesn't work as zombies running at you over a field.
No, because then all the bombs and stuff probably would have been really
probably
good.
would have been pretty effective.
Yeah,
blowing off their legs would have been super effective. But it's about like the slow shambling corpses and you're shooting everything, but unless you get that head, they're not going to go down.
Just in the book, one of the things I thought was really cool that they invented, like munitions wise, they have the 223 bullet that like incinerates on impact, so it like burns the zombie's brain, so you don't have to worry about like getting rid of the disease part. Yeah, so you can just throw them in a hole and bury them.
And like their eyes light up. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's really cool. I forgot to talk about that. That's super dope.
Definitely not in the movie. So did we watch this movie in theaters?
We were talking about this the other day, David, and I honestly don't remember.
There's
also a lot about the movie that I don't remember.
Well, this is how I remember it. Maybe I'm wrong. I was so upset at the time that I didn't even watch the movie in theaters. I'd read the book. And I don't remember. Well, I had read the Zombie Survival Guide is what it was. I thought, oh, this looks funny. And then I read that and I was like, wow, this is really good, actually. Oh, and he's got another book. Let me read World War Z. And then I read that and I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. So then when that movie was announced, I was like pumped. And then, I just didn't go see it. And at the time I was working at FYE and people would come in and sell Blu-rays. And if you were buying in Blu-rays, you could, slip a couple bucks and keep it from the store, buy it for yourself. And someone had come in and was selling like the Blu-ray copy of World War Z days after it came out. And I think we were paying like $5 for it.
Nice.
And I was like, hey man, can I give you $7? Or how would you feel about blah, blah? Yeah, I was just like, trying to cut some deal for myself. So then I bought the Blu-ray and then we watched it together, I'm pretty sure.
That actually sounds kind of familiar because I remember being so upset that being like, no, I'm not going to go like pay $10 to watch this.
And that's
to just
how I
be
felt
angry?
too.
No, why would I do that?
But then I was like $7 and we can all watch it on Blu-ray and then, I'll feel good about that. Anyway. After what?
Well, it's because I almost hit a curse, and I was like, I don't want to create more work for myself later. But just like really talk about our feelings while we're watching it out loud at our leisure.
Exactly.
That's what we're
exactly
looking for.
different setup. But straight up, dude, after rewatching that movie yesterday or whatever, I am convinced that I fell asleep in the first 5 minutes and woke up during the credits.
Well, I know I was awake through the whole first run, and there was still a ton of stuff that I didn't remember. And while I do have a lot of gripes, I just want to go out in front of it already and say that like it was more enjoyable than I remember it being, and only certain parts,
Yeah,
there was still like I still have my issues with it. None of that changed, but there were certain parts that were like, well, this is kind of cool.
I got rid of it, which is pretty crazy for me. I got a lot of movies. If a movie's really bad and I feel like I'm never going to watch this again, I'll get rid of it. And in this case, I feel like I didn't give it a fair chance. It was clear that I fell asleep through so much of it that I was just like, this movie must have sucked. I slept through it and blah blah. I hate what they've done with World War Z, and I got rid of it. But if I were to watch it as just a zombie movie that came out that year and had no relationship to World War Z, I probably wouldn't dog on it that much.
They're like, all right, well, I hate fast zombies, but that was pretty all right.
Well, there's sometimes where the fast zombies okay with me. Like 28 Days Later is terrifying.
Well, I just look at those as infected because those aren't zombies. They have like a rage virus.
That is true. But to me, even an infection movie is still a zombie movie.
I think of them as infection movies. I separate them hard in my head.
Interesting.
Yeah, in my head, it's two different things.
They're the same thing to me. I don't know.
That's weird.
Well, it's just because they act the same, and the device is the same. Like
I would agree that the device is the same, but I wouldn't agree that they act the same.
I guess there is a different tension to it for sure. I'm trying to think of like what are the fast zombie things like Left 4 Dead, which they also call them infected. The only like fast,
and those are crazy because they get all mutated. You know what I mean?
Oh, and then
would you make Resident Evil like a zombie franchise? You know what I mean?
Well, Resident Evil are infected. That is like the most infected of every storyline because it's the T virus, and then the virus is mutated in all these different things, and in Resident Evil, the zombie is like the lowest level of villain. Like it just gets so much worse.
Grunts.
Man, the only zombie movie I can think about where they're straight up running, well, Return of the Living Dead, obviously, but that movie's rules are just wacky. We've already been over that. But the Dawn of the Dead remake, the Zack Snyder one, with Ving Rhames, they straight up run in that movie. But
do the zombies run in that Korean movie we just watched? What's it called? Is it Korean?
Oh,
One Cut of the Dead.
One Cut of the Dead, great zombie movie.
Ooh, I don't remember if they run or not.
I don't think so. I think they're old school Romero zombies, which is exactly what World War Z the book is. They're old school Romero zombies.
Max Brooks, heavily influenced by George A. Romero.
Yeah, and then of course when the movie comes out, it's got to be big spectacle. I didn't get to look this up, and I don't know if you saw it, but I feel like it's the highest budgeted zombie movie ever.
Yes, and
it's also the biggest earner.
When it came out, it was like one of the biggest earners. Like I think in opening weekend, it made more than the first Avatar movie or something like that.
Whoa!
And it was one of Brad Pitt's highest grossing movies at the time. Weird. Brad Pitt.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah. And it was pretty favorably received from critics.
Yeah.
It didn't get terrible reviews or anything. And I think maybe just the people who were like World War Z fans were probably the only ones who were like super upset.
I understand that.
And again, I don't think the movie is terrible. It's kind of mediocre. Even if it wasn't World War Z related, I don't think it'd be in my top 10 zombie movies.
I mean, my feeling at the time when I had some time to digest it and just get angrier was, why would you buy the rights to something and then just go so far off the path? You know what I mean? But it is what it is. It's Hollywood. It's a monster.
Well, to talk about kind of the premise of the movie, basically Brad Pitt is the narrator character, but instead of it being post, story where we're reflecting on what happened, it's while the outbreak's going on. So the movie starts pretty much with a cold open of like zombies taking over New York, and within minutes, New York has already fallen, and they escape. And basically, he used to be like a government, he used to work for the government, and the U.S. government, in desperation, recruits him to try and find the answer to how we can solve this, because he's been effective in the past working in tense situations.
Yeah, chronologically in the past, like book-wise, I'd put like the opening to the movie picks up like at the beginning of the Great Panic.
Yeah.
Like when it's like full-blown outbreak.
Which immediately is where the tension's already messed up.
Yes.
World War Z works because it goes so slow. And you see every little piece. How bad is this going to get? Like, it's going to be terrible because of how the book starts off saying, hey, we came back from the brink of the edge and this is the story. But in this one, it just feels like immediately, like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Feels like an action movie.
Yes, which is interesting because when I was reading about the movie, there's a mention here that Michael Straczynski, I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong, who identified the challenge in adapting the work as creating a main character out of a book that reads as a UN report on the zombie wars. Straczynski identified 2002 spy film The Bourne Identity as an appropriate comparison and noted that the film would have a large international scope which maintained the political emphasis. He asked about his involvement with the film. Author Max Brooks stated that he had zero control, but favored Brad Pitt, and expressed approval of Straczynski as a screenwriter. He said, I can't give it away, but Straczynski found a way to tie it all together. The last draft I read was amazing. And this was years before the movie came out.
Yeah.
The first screenplay run. So,
I mean, they bought the rights like 7 years before the movie came out.
Yeah, and I wonder how different it was. And maybe if Max Brooks was honestly just like pumped about it.
Yeah.
I know you're going to play an interview later. I'm curious to see what he says.
I mean, and I was going to read some stuff with the interview, but I'd actually seen like, where is it? They at some point during their production was done. They like had to go back. They kind of cut the movie in half and reshot it because it like wasn't working. So they were still trying to do it like a little bit closer, and it just wasn't working for like
I read about that
a
too.
movie. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's interesting because the pacing of the movie is really off. But anyways, so Bourne Identity, right off the bat, that's not the right one to do.
No, it's not. Although I love the Bourne Identity series, wrong.
But when you think about it, Bourne Identity basically has the same plot line as James Bond. Yeah. So I'm just going to use James Bond because there's way more Bond movies. But all I'm saying is
I disagree with this comparison.
They are the same, Frank. I'm sorry.
No, not that comparison, but just the skin that we are putting on you making this point.
Oh, I see what you're
I would
saying.
prefer if we just stuck with the Bourne Identity.
No one likes the Bourne movies. Look, actually, those are good movies. But Bond travels all over the world, all the different set pieces, all the huge action things, and the World War Z movie has that. But that is not at all what the book's about, and that's the problem. So they started off like saying
it's a way more jet-setting version of this. Yeah.
So they started off with just this thing like, this is our goal, this is our template or our inspiration. And that's why it's so off base, because immediately they were in the wrong area. But anyway, speaking of the reshoots, it was evident when I was watching the movie last night. I was enjoying it, most of it anyways. But the structure of the movie's all off. So it starts off in New York. So the first act is them getting out of New York and then him bartering to let his family stay on this naval carrier where it seems like this is the last of the U.S. Like our organized forces are all on this boat. And this is my motivation.
There's like a scene of like dudes carrying the Constitution. Like, you know what I mean?
We have the president's dead. The vice president's dead. Chiefs of staff are gone. And then they're going to South Korea or something like that to find a doctor Or they're taking a virologist with them who dies in a hilarious way. But that's the first act of the movie.
I had totally forgotten about that dude's death, and I think we were all just like busted out laughing.
There's some good
funny
stuff in this movie, and that part is so funny. Like,
and you know what? Like, that's probably how it would go down with somebody
Totally.
like that, like somebody who's never handled a gun before.
and there are characters like that in World War Z who are just total, like, they're patsies. They shouldn't be in the situation they're in.
Oh yeah,
So that part feels pretty good. That's like our first act, more or less. The second act is like that idea being a dead end, but they get a breadcrumb trail to Israel. So then we go to Israel, where we get to see this giant wall that they talk about so much in the book. And that was really cool, seeing that set piece. But then immediately that kind of devolves into the same thing that happened in New York. Like,
they just get overrun with a
he's there-
stupid, like, growing wall of zombies. Like, they make a
Yeah.
ladder onto each other because they're like running and climbing. I really hated that scene.
it's just like, how is
Which
no
is
one
a shame,
watching
because
this?
the Israel part, and Max Brooks says it himself, like in the interview I'll play for you later, but it's the closest to the book. Like, they take it, there's direct lines from the book that character says. He's
Yeah.
the only character from the book who's in the movie.
Other than, I guess, Brad Pitt. I don't know if you can count that, though, because the character in the book is nameless, pretty much, and has no ties to the story whatsoever. So yeah, then we get this Israel thing, and it's just like New York's huge set piece. In this one in particular, man, the CGI zombie thing is so heavily used when we see this like wave of zombies, and it just doesn't hold up well.
I was going to say, even early on, the CGI gets bad, but I was thinking of The Invisible Man, which we watched also this weekend.
Whoa, Invisible Man has some bad CGI.
It's got some bad CGI, yeah,
Some
for sure.
bad CGI. For 2020, you can't be releasing CGI like that.
So I think we compared it to, like, especially in a couple scenes, like to Blade Trinity, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, it's embarrassing when Hollow Man looks better than your movie in some scenes. That's not good.
And you don't even have a shot of Kevin Bacon's penis to
Yeah.
carry you through, you know what I mean?
Kevin's Bacon's little sausage.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
World War Z, though, the zombie thing, I don't remember it being even good for the time.
No.
Like, I think Avengers had already come out or something. It was somewhere around there. There was already way better CGI in movies. And then to just go so heavily on it, because they put themselves in this corner where there was no way to recreate that swarm, because it moves like one body, like
a swarm of bees.
It's like a swarm of bees. There's no way you can do that with
Or
people.
killer bees, Wu-Tang. Protect your neck.
But yeah, that part, I know I complain about CGI all the time on the channel, and sometimes I'll watch a movie with CGI. You know what I mean? Like, I watch Star Wars, obviously, and some movies do it better than others. But in this one, it's like the stakes don't feel there because it's so fake. It feels so unnatural.
Yeah. It looks very similar to the Stampede of Wildebeest and The Lion King.
Yeah, it does.
It is very, very similar to that.
But then we get transported to the third act, where they get to this, like, well, there's this cool airplane transition.
The airplane stuff's kind of dope.
And I guess technically that's the end of the second act. That's awesome.
And you know what? While we're calling out bad CGI, I feel like we should shout out at the same time. The practicals are pretty dope. When they do, like,
oh yeah,
close-ups of, like, singular zombies and stuff, they look pretty good.
and actually this is kind of the turning point for me, because once they get to the airplane, there's no more giant swarms of things.
No, it's a lot more intimate.
Yeah. So then when
Even
there's
after that.
zombies, it's like people in makeup, and that part looks awesome. And the plane thing is so cool. Like, that's a great example of what a story in the book feels like. Like, that little plane segment would be a chapter.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, so there was clearly great ideas there. So then we get to this last part of the movie, and this is where I feel so conflicted, because to me, this was the most interesting part of the movie, where we get to this disease lab.
The WHO lab, the World Health
WHO.
Organization.
There we go. And we meet this cast of people who are basically like, okay, Brad Pitt gets this idea to inject himself with a virus that they'll know not to attack them. Because they don't want to be poisoned or whatever. They can sense bad blood. So then Brad Pitt devises a plan to break into this part of the lab that's been overrun by zombies, basically. And this is more or less how this act goes. It feels like the longest one, especially after the first two that are like adrenaline filled. But then you get in this last part and there's like tension.
Yeah.
And it feels so cool. So I'm conflicted because it's the part of the movie I enjoy the most. But at this point, it doesn't feel like anything else in the whole movie. It's like an hour in, we just started over.
Like the tone is 100% different.
So different. And it's just like, man, you guys.
And it's like, it's funny. It's its own standalone film within the film. It's got the small ensemble class.
Yeah.
The cast. It's like the small setting.
It's just great. It's really cool. I think that's the most enthralling part of the movie. Of course. Okay. So just two things though. It ends with the dumbest thing ever. Like with Brad Pitt curing the zombie virus, like 3 weeks in or whatever.
Yeah.
How long has it really been?
Well, he doesn't cure it. He figures out a way for them to camouflage themselves by, like, they create a vaccine from like some deadly virus. I forget which virus they chose.
I don't even think
he blindly chooses like a virus, like a vial, knowing nothing. He's not a doctor.
No.
Like,
and even the guy in the lab's like, oh, don't pick that one.
Yeah.
If he picks anything from that left side, he's dead. So he happens to pick the right one. Okay. You cannot, Straczynski or whatever the screenwriter is, when the book has gotten so many comparisons to War of the Worlds, its entire creation, you can't end it with War of the Worlds. It's so ridiculous.
In the end, it was our diseases that were our greatest asset.
Dude, it's so ridiculous that they went there. They just did the same thing.
And then like like that whole plot device I hate, you know what I mean? The whole movie I was complaining about it, just like he kept being like, somebody would drop a hint like sometimes nature hides like a virus's, it disguises a virus's biggest weakness as his greatest strength, like, and then you get all these little clues throughout there, and it's just like, oh my god, they're gonna do the whole thing at the end,
and it's so obvious when they're trying to work it in earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, there's this guy standing in the crowd. He's not getting bit. Here's a long.
He looked kind of old and sickly.
Here's a long shot on it. Oh, it's going to come back later in a flashback.
Oh, what? This little Israeli kid who looks like a Make-A-Wish kid? Oh, they're not going to touch him either?
And then the most annoying thing is, at the end, you get this montage of all these events happening all over the world. And I'm like, this is the movie!
Yeah.
This is what World War Z should be. Mm-hmm. And what are you guys doing now?
It was almost like, I bet this is what you wanted, wasn't it?
I know. It was so insulting. Man, what a mess. Oh, and of course, so like after watching the movie, I was like, that was disjointed. And then today doing reading, it's like, oh, they brought in Damon Lindelof to rewrite the third act. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. But then David Lindelof didn't have time to finish the script.
Oh my God.
So then he brought in Drew Goddard, who wrote Lost with him, to finish the rewrite of the rewrite that Damon Lindelof is.
Did he also handle the ending of Lost? Was that his big part, his big contribution too?
Had checked out by then too. Yeah, they pushed the film release date back. They went for 7 weeks of additional shooting where they filmed this, I'm guessing. Where was it at that I read though?
Probably on the internet.
Ooh, I don't know where I put it, but basically, dude, they had a whole Russian ending to the film where they were like in Red Square fighting off the zombies in Russia.
Dude, that sounds dope.
And apparently the ending, it was something like it was too bleak or it didn't work. So then they decided to change it for like a more hopeful ending.
Dude, bleak endings are dope. You telling me the ending of The Mist isn't sick?
Dude, the ending of The Mist is amazing. Filmmakers initially intended to film a climactic battle scene set in Russia, and the crew moved to Budapest to film it there. Filming in Budapest commenced on the evening of October 10th, 2011. That morning, the Hungarian Counterterrorism Center raided the warehouse where guns had been delivered to use as filming props.
Nice.
85 assault rifles, sniper rifles, and handguns had been flown into Budapest overnight on a private aircraft, but the film's producers had failed to clear the delivery with Hungarian authorities.
Oh my God. How do you overlook something like that?
And while the import documentation indicated that the weapons had been disabled, all were found to be fully functional.
Oh my God.
In February 10th...
He like made that poor pilot an arms smuggler.
Yes. On February 10th, 2012, the charges were dropped after investigators were unable to identify exactly which organization or person had ownership rights. Therefore, they could not establish which party was criminally liable.
Nice. Thank God for LLCs. Am I right?
Yeah, but the reshoots caused the budget to balloon around $190 million. Several of the scenes shot in Budapest, including a large-scale battle with zombies in Moscow's Red Square, were dropped from the final cut in order to water down the film's political undertones and steer it towards a more generally friendly summer blockbuster.
And that's exactly what it was.
Exactly, dude. The climactic battle scene in Russia, for which there was 12 minutes of footage, had Pitt's characters fighting through zombies more like a warrior hero than the sympathetic family man of the earlier acts. It wasn't character driven anymore, is what the second unit director said.
100%. That's my biggest gripe, is you lose the human aspect. You lose the characters, you know?
Well, he's saying that they put it back in. He's saying that the ending they had originally in Russia lost the human element. And that's why they had to redo the ending.
Where was the human element in this version? Which part were they talking about?
I don't know.
Are they talking about the one human that they follow the whole time?
Yeah, like Brad Pitt doesn't do a bad performance by any means.
No, he's Brad Pitt. He's
Brad
gonna knock
Pitt,
it out of the park.
But everything goes so fast. There's really like only one character that you really like care for, and it's, well, maybe two. It's like the little Mexican boy whose family dies. Tomas, who they just start calling Tommy. They just anglify him immediately. And then the Israeli girl, the one who loses her hand.
Her name's like Saeed or something like that.
Something like that. She's like the closest to the number 2 in the movie.
Yeah.
There's a couple characters that are interesting.
Little Sinead O'Connor looking girl.
For reals, dude. Just check this out. I have one last thing I wanted to read to you, and I think I'm done here.
Why don't you read it to me,
David?
David?
This was so insulting. An early script was leaked onto the internet in March 2008, leading to a review by Ain't It Cool News. Those guys are a bunch of hacks, I'm just going to say. They write the most clickbaity
hack
articles
frauds. Tell them, David. Call them out.
Which called it not just a good adaptation of a difficult book, but a genre-defining piece of work that could well see us all arguing about whether or not a zombie movie qualifies as Best Picture material. Calm down, Ain't It Cool?
You need to chill out.
The script was well enough respected to find a place on the 2007 blacklist of most liked screenplays not yet produced. The Ain't It Cool News review also noted the film appears stylistically similar to Children of Men.
What?
Following Jerry Lane as he travels the post-war world and interviews survivors of the zombie war who were starting to wonder if survival is a victory of any kind. Straczynski had hoped the film would begin production by the start of 2009. So the thing that they're describing, dude, is World War Z.
Yeah.
So basically a studio is like, this movie is not going to make money. We need to make it a blockbuster. Let's get Brad Pitt and let's change all of this.
I mean, they did it. And I think I read somewhere that Brad Pitt's like company had something to do with the procuring of the rights.
Yeah,
like,
apparently they had a bidding war with Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah. Which is kind of crazy. Can you imagine? I wonder if they laughed about it at all on the set of like Once Upon a Time.
That is, if they ever do a second one, they should just bring Leo in. They'll just be like partners again.
Yeah. But I mean, they successfully, if the goal was to make a blockbuster, they did it. You know what I mean? Like $190 million budget, as you said, even with the balloons, but they grossed like worldwide $540 million. So they did it.
I mean, most successful zombie movie ever made.
Yeah.
And who knows what's going to come close to that. And
it is just that. It's a summer blockbuster. There's some good ones. There's some bad ones. This is a pretty okay one.
It's decent. Yeah. I think it's decent.
Yeah.
I mean, last thing I'll say about the movie, dude,
it's better than Grind.
Obviously, if it's a summer blockbuster, it has to be PG-13. A movie like this needed to be R, just from the gore fan inside of me.
I mean, even the unrated version that we watched last night, I didn't really notice any more gore, you know?
No, it wasn't. I mean,
maybe a little bit more blood.
And maybe I'm depraved for saying that, but if you're into the zombie subgenre, you're there for the guts. You're there for the practical goop.
You know who you are. Don't try to front on us. You like the guts.
You know who Tom Savini is. You know what I mean?
You know.
Yeah.
You're one of those people in the room when it happens. You're not like closing your eyes and going, oh yeah, oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. You know what I mean? And you know our feelings on it. I was very curious, like, as to Max Brooks' feelings when all this came out. It was pretty quiet at the beginning. But I did read. There's a Q&A I read on scifinow.co.uk. And just a quick excerpt from that I really thought was at least interesting to me that I wanted to share. Question of the interviewer was, there are sequences in the novel that feel cinematic. Did you think about a film adaptation while you were writing it? And Max answers, never. I wrote a book, not a pre-movie. I'm honestly still surprised why anyone would have wanted to make World War Z into a movie in the first place. There's no alpha male hero, no villain or conspiracy, and the fact that the book was written after the war removes a whole layer of tension. I wrote it as an oral history, nothing more, which I feel like just speaks to like they had to, you know what I mean? They weren't making an art piece for us. They were just trying to make some money, man. And that's what's going to happen. This is the way of the world, especially in Hollywood. The question after that was, were you involved with the making of the film at all? Were you shown drafts of the script? It says none. I wasn't involved in the day-to-day creative decisions of the movie. I still haven't even read the script. All I've seen of the movie has come from YouTube. And this interview was done before the movie's release. And also just something I wanted to go over with you, David, was this awesome little excerpt that I took this from the YouTube channel Professor Farnsworth. I'm glad I remembered what it was because I didn't write it down.
Good news,
Good
everyone.
news. Of just a chunk of interview from a panel Max Brooks did at San Diego Comic-Con in 2013. And I'll play this for you now, David, and for you, the listener at home.
Look, here's the deal. I expected to hate it. I wanted to hate it. God, did I want to hate it. I wanted it to suck. Because then I could be all snarky. And I could come here as the purist and meet with my fellow purists. We could all be like, yeah, didn't it suck? Yeah, take that, Johnny Suede. Yeah. And your big Hollywood machine. And yeah, and I could say snarky things like, well, maybe they should have followed the book. And then we'd all feel good about ourselves. That was the plan. And then I went to see it. And it didn't suck. And I didn't hate it. And I specifically thought I would hate it because it was so different from the book. But what shocked me was it was exactly because it was so different from the book that I didn't hate it. Because it was just somebody else's movie. It had nothing to do with me. So I was completely emotionally divorced from what I was seeing on the screen. You know, now I understand. That was like my big teaching moment. I get it now. I like Stephen King like tore his hair out when he saw The Shining. Because like, there's the Overlook Hotel, which he created. And there's the characters that he created. But they're not doing the things that they do in the book. So I'm sure he was like, it's like when you're a kid and like somebody takes your toys and plays them. And you're like, no, Luke Skywalker and Han Solo would never do that to each other. So I get that now as a writer, why it would be so upsetting. But I didn't have that moment. I didn't have a moment of like, hey, Jerry Lane would never say that moment. Because I didn't invent Jerry Lane. J. Michael Straczynski invented Jerry Lane. Maybe he had that moment. If he saw it, because, you know, he wrote the first draft and it got rewritten, so maybe he sat in the audience and was like, hey, wait a minute. I created Jerry Lane and Babylon 5. I didn't have that moment. I literally, like, once the title sequence passed, I was like, oh, this is fun. Okay. And to be totally honest, I hate to admit this, but like the only character that was in the movie that was in my book was the Israeli intelligence expert. He was spot on. Like that's the guy. That's how I wrote him. That's how I imagined it. So I loved him. Everybody else I was fine with. I love that 3.2 seconds of Matthew Fox. And James Badge Dale from the Pacific, he was great. And I gotta be honest, like there actually were moments in the movie that just pissed me off because they were actually good. And there was stuff I would have written. Like for those of you who has not seen the movie? Raise your hands. All right, good for you. Okay, I'll spoil one moment for you. There's a scene where a guy who's never had any experience with firearms, like, oh my god, zombies are coming, and he turns and he falls on the gun and it goes off. He's got his finger on the trigger and he shoots himself. I would have totally written that scene. That's everything I stand for. Those of you who read my books, you know that's like everything I write about are those little moments that we consider to be boring, but like can change everything in a heartbeat. So when I saw that, I was like, wow. That's totally in the spirit of what I would have done. So I like the international stuff, and I mean, it works. It works as a movie, and it's just freaking killing me to admit it. But It works. It's not a bad movie, and $600 million worth of tickets clearly agrees with that. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think people will remember this movie as like the summer of Bizarro, literally and figuratively, because remember, leading up to it, everybody thought like this was going to be Brad Pitt's Waterworld. Remember? And look, I'm a nerd, I get it. I took a date to see Legends of the Fall. And I walked out alone. So I get how my fellow nerds would have a general animosity for Brad Pitt just on general principle. It had nothing to do with his work. So I got that. And the press was just like, oh, this is going to be his big folly. Yeah, that thing is going to tank. Now, After Earth. I mean, all these other movies. I mean, wow. Shows you what I know. I mean, if you'd have said to me 3 months ago, like, this is going to be a big hit this summer, I would have been, are you kidding? You know, Mom is on. I guess not. So, that's the movie. It came, it went, it was the #1 movie in the world. It hasn't even opened in half the countries yet. It's still going. It was the largest non-sequel, non-franchise movie opened since Avatar. Wow, yeah. It was the biggest financial hit Brad Pitt has ever had. I don't know if there's going to be a sequel. Y'all have been coming up to my booth like, so they're making a sequel. I'm like, they haven't told me. Probably for good reason. And the nice thing is, if you want to get all personal and dish some dirt, I've actually had a pretty decent relationship with Paramount because I've been honest with them from day one. I've said, look, don't tell me anything or show me anything that you don't want me to talk about because I'm a really crappy liar. I just am. Like, that's why my wife married me. She knows I can never have an affair. I am really transparent. You know, not like I'd make a lousy spy, I could never work on Wall Street, just things I could never do. So Paramount and I have kept sort of a respected distance from each other. And I've said, look, if you deviated from my book, I can't ring the bell, which is why I didn't go out on the path and be like, hey, go see the movie, because I can't. It's not my book, so I can't very well go in and shill for a movie that's not my book. And I told him, I said, look, if I don't like it, you may hear about it. And I did not like it. It's like 7 years of snarky remarks I've been revising. Oh well. So, I guess I'll have to leave that up to Alan Moore. No, it's true. I mean, you guys know, see, that's another thing. Like, see, you guys know the story behind, like, Watchmen? See, like, Alan, he actually didn't have a choice when he turned it into a movie. He never had the rights, so they just did it, and they didn't ask him. Seriously. So he gets to righteously rant all he wants. Nobody put a gun to my head, so things I wouldn't have ranted about it even if I hated it, because the truth is, like, I'm a grown-up, and I made a deal, and you can't have it both ways. You can't shake hands with the devil and then be like, that's the devil! that's just the way it is. So anyway, that's the movie.
Wow, that's great. Not only did he burn After Earth, terrible movie.
Yeah.
But also got a shot on Alan Moore.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. It's like, how many podcasts can we bring up Watchmen? All of them.
I just felt like that was a delightful little, not really an interview, but a panel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seems like a fun guy.
Yeah, he does seem like a fun guy.
And I don't know, like, that was really one of the last things I did in my research besides, like, the brief sequel stuff I'm going to hit really quick, which he mentions too. But I felt like that tied it up really nice for me.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how I wanted to tie up this little section, man. Made me feel a little bit better because it's just like, Max Brooks, you kook.
He's right.
And I couldn't have said it better than the man myself. Anyways, there was supposed to be a sequel, World War Z 2.
Back in the Habit.
The original release was set for 2017, but production hadn't started yet. Like when 2017 came, it just like hadn't come. They hadn't done anything. Shooting was expected to begin in autumn of 2018, but they pushed it back when Brad Pitt signed on to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So, I mean, priorities. You had to shoot that masterpiece really quick. Tarantino says, you want to be in my movie, you go. You go right now. And then it got delayed again when David Fincher had been brought on to direct. But he had to do the stellar work on Netflix's Mindhunter season 2.
Okay.
Which is dope. Fantastic. If you haven't checked it out, David, or you listener, Jeff or Roger or George,
Sally,
check it out. Fantastic series, but pushed back again. And in 2019, production was officially halted by Paramount. The Hollywood Reporter suggested that it was due to China not releasing the original because of supernatural stories of zombies are apparently politically sensitive in China. But I feel like, well, that's surprising, but also a lot of things are politically sensitive in China.
Yeah, that's true. Ooh, and I feel like now is the worst time for them to try and do it.
Yeah. So the article that I read talking about the sequel said, like, keep your eyes peeled, but it's officially like kaputs right now.
Dude, I think coronavirus...
And with the way that things are going right now,
yeah.
Are they ever going to make movies again?
I was going to say, with coronavirus, I feel like there's going to be a bit of like, that's going to be a touchy subject for a little while.
Who's going to be the first?
Who's
going to have the balls to do it
viral
first?
Movie right after coronavirus? I don't know, man. Yikes. But I could see this being permanently canned.
Yeah.
I could see it never coming back.
Yeah.
And even if you do a sequel, where do they go next, I guess? Now that Brad Pitt's figured out how to fight off the zombies?
I guess you just go into the next part of the story, like... Because they haven't figured out how to fight them off yet. They just figured out how to stop getting murdered so much.
Yeah, and does... You know, if you start firing at them and you're cloaked.
Well, they were
or whatever,
saying in the lore in the movie, they were saying like if you kill one, or at least that's what that one scientist at the WHO was saying, like if you kill one, they get more aggressive. Also, like bees.
So is it? But what I'm saying is say you make yourself invisible by giving yourself a disease.
Yeah.
But then you start killing zombies.
And
are you still invisible, or are they like
pretty pissed?
Blood? What's going on?
Yeah. Who knows? You know, I'm sure they were trying to figure that out, but perhaps we'll never know, David.
Ooh, and you know what? One more thing too. Just wanted to mention quickly the World War Z game. There was one that was supposed to come out in 2009 based on the book.
Really?
And it got canned. And probably good too, because it was by a developer that wasn't, you know, with a great track record. It probably would have ended up being that great. But now World War Z is like a 4-player cooperative shooter that is literally Left 4 Dead. It is just so much Left 4 Dead. And I was telling Brandon right now on Apollo City Comics, it's like, it's Left 4 Dead, but just not as good.
Yeah. You had me play a little bit before we started the work day. And it's very much exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It's like, the controls could be better. The visuals could be better. The action could feel better.
It just doesn't feel as tight as Left 4 Dead.
No, but it's straight up like Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if you're really...
It's Left 4 Dead, but the stitching doesn't look quite right, and the logo's a little off.
If you're really hankering for that kind of experience, and you don't have a 360 anymore, or a PC with Left 4 Dead 2, then yeah, play it with some friends. And I bet with, 3 people, it'd be a lot of fun. They visit a bunch of different locales and things like that.
Or just play it really drunk. You might not notice how unpolished it is.
But man, I bet if you played them back to back, you'd be like...
What is this garbage?
This game is 10 years later and not as good.
Easily.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Well, I think it's time, Frank. Oh, that's interesting.
Nice.
Our current event segment. And I believe you have the current event today. What is it?
Today, I would like to talk about a little something, David. Do you know what's happening out in the world, David?
Is it the coronavirus?
It is the coronavirus. A lot of people talking about the coronavirus.
I haven't heard about this yet. What is this?
Well, there's just a lot of people giving their opinions on coronavirus. You know what I mean?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Are we doing that right now?
One of those people is Max Brooks, David.
Whoa!
Let's get into it.
What? The perfect...
I was looking, I think I had Googled like Max Brooks reaction to World War Z movie. And then I got this article, Max Brooks' reaction to like COVID-19 and how it's being handled.
Whoa.
Yes. And I'll be honest, I meant to take some notes to tell me where to skip to in this article. That's not what happened. So we're about to do it live.
Okay.
Apocalyptic. I'm just going to start reading here and then we'll jump around. This I'm pulling from npr.org.
Whoa. Okay. Weird.
Yeah.
All right.
Apocalyptic novelist Max Brooks, full name Maximilian Brooks Shields, is something of an expert on planning for pandemics and other disasters. The author, whose books include World War Z, Germ Warfare, and forthcoming Devolution, has toured the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and has reviewed government response plans related to various emergency situations, all in the course of research. So, I mean, this is just kind of like his credit. He's not just like some author, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is what he's into. This is like, as a result of this, he's done a lot of research into like government reactions to pandemics. We have a network. This is a quote from Max Brooks. We have a network in place that we as taxpayers have been funding to get us ready for something just like this. We have been disastrously slow and disorganized from day one. Brooks says the notion that the U.S. government was blindsided the pandemic is, quote, an onion of layered lies, end quote, like an ogre.
Whoa.
New quote. What could have happened when this virus exploded, even when Wuhan was locked down, is we could have put the word out. The government could have put the word out to ramp up emergency supplies and get them ready and then have an information strategy in place. Instead, Brooks says President Trump was slow to acknowledge the virus as a real threat, even though he's trying to change the story now.
Oh, yeah.
And thus far, the president has resisted using the Defense Production Act to force private companies to manufacture masks, gloves, and other essential supplies in the fight against coronavirus. Many government task forces that plan for disasters have yet to be activated in the crisis. Which is just like crazy. You know what I mean? I was listening to somebody else talk about this act, which I'll be 100%. I didn't know that was a thing. Found out it was a thing, and it was like, yo, why aren't we using this right now? Like, what is going on?
I know he's in talks with General Motors about getting them to do it.
But just General Motors.
Yeah, and there was something about General Motors being like, we can't just switch to making, breathing masks or something like that. I don't want to misquote what they said, but I mean, that's how we've gotten through things before.
Yeah.
That's how we won World War II.
Yep.
By just saying, hey, we're going to go at this 100%. There's even a thing in World War Z about that.
Mm-hmm.
About what is it? What do they call it for the 100% effort?
All in war? All out war?
All out war.
Yeah.
Like Walking Dead,
Mm-hmm.
where everyone every second is working against or working for the effort. And that's really what's missing, man. That is what's missing.
100%.
Even now, as things are getting pretty bad in the United States, what is this, like week 2 of most people's quarantines, 3 or 4 weeks for some places,
It's like the beginning
California?
of my first, the beginning of my second week.
Yeah. In El Paso, we're behind.
Yeah.
The United States is behind. I don't know, man. This might be our last podcast in person for a while.
Yeah, who knows? We're about to get new guidelines soon.
Yeah. But I think Max Brooks is right. I think he's 100% right. We had all the warning signs. But what really upsets me now is all these people who are just refusing to listen to any kind of... Like, there's people still who are like, I just want to go out. It's really not a big deal. It's like, how do you think it's not a big deal, man? Oh, the flu kills more people. It's like, man.
We'll see. Give it time. This is a fresh
one.
one.
So short-sighted. Well, it's not just about the death count. It's about hospitals being overwhelmed and infrastructure crumbling, which is very possible. So, I don't know, dude. We all got to be vigilant. We all got to be careful. Really practice social distancing and limit our interactions. Be careful around the old, the elders in our lives and the very young
and the immunodeficient.
I'm very curious to see how this works for the 2020 election, man. Donald Trump's approval rating has actually been higher than it's ever been during this time. But I feel like, man, who feels like he's done an adequate job of this?
Even if he does an inadequate job, I feel like he would really have to screw the pooch to lose the election. Like he'd have to do something really bad, and they're probably watching him like the closest they've ever watched him.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, he was talking, what was it, last week about he wants the whole country to reopen on Easter.
Yeah.
Which is a week from this Sunday. Like, we'll release this podcast Sunday. A week from then is when he wants to reopen. It's like,
and it was funny. The Texas governor was saying the same thing, but then he just came out like, what was it, today or yesterday or the day? The day before, saying like, all right, let's keep it closed down till April 30th.
Yeah, it's just like, man, these guys don't. They're
and that's a Texan. We remember the Alamo, damn it.
For reals. I don't know what Alamo has to do with viruses, but I remember it. It's just crazy, dude. It's just like, I mean, if he made a decision like that and there were dire consequences to it, whew, that could be bad. But this is rough. This is like a nightmare scenario when everyone was like, Trump's getting elected. Oh no, we have this idiot who's in control of everything. It's like, this is the worst possible thing that could happen. Something so grave.
It's like we were alive. Not to compare this to 9/11, you know. Although I saw somebody comparing the death count, like we've now surpassed 9/11, and somebody commenting like, "Yeah, that's like our death rule." You know what I mean? If it's worse than 9/11, it's really bad, or if it's not as bad, it's like half of 9/11.
Well.
It was just like some little joke. But we were in the 5th grade when 9/11 happened,
Yep.
man. Like imagine, like, because I don't know about you, but we were watching like the news coverage. And our teachers who had spent the whole year with us and knew us, like was trying to help us like understand what like our parents was going. Like we needed to know, but we needed to be watched. And imagine it was like some substitute teacher that day you had for your class. You know what I mean? Just some sub, like some guy with like not even a full college degree, just like making a little bit of money.
That's a bad.
That's what we got going on right now.
Oh, you're right though. Man, what a terrifying time to be a kid. This is unprecedented. This kind of thing.
Unprecedented? Like he's not doing a very good job?
Well, it's unpresidential and it's unprecedented. Man, I could never have imagined this thing happening at the beginning of the year.
Nah, who saw it coming? You know, except for the people who knew and didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, that's alarming, man. I mean, I'm hoping for the best here. We'll see what happens. We'll see how bad things get, but man, maybe next week we won't do any quarantine talk. We got to get lighter.
We'll see.
We'll just do Left 4 Dead stream.
We might have to start doing just like just bringing in survival manuals, like actual ones, and reading them, telling people where to get it.
Maybe a survival podcast.
Yeah. But although it is terrifying, I felt like that was pretty interesting.
Oh, I do think it was interesting.
I was just so excited when I came across it.
Man,
I was like, yeah, we'll just keep talking about Max Brooks.
How perfect.
Keep the train rolling. Well, I hope he's in the Peeps and Predicts jar somewhere here. How crazy would that be?
Yeah, let's switch over to Peeps and Predicts, our final segment. Where we have fake matchups of real people.
Wait, David, the theme song. There is no theme song. If you have a theme song, email us davidandfrankandbeans@gmail.com.
Peeps and Predicts. Okay. You want the peeps or you want the predicts?
You know what? I'm feeling a little bit like a predicament today, David. I'll take this predicament jar. For those unfamiliar with the channel or this game we're playing, if this is the first time you've ever made it through a full episode of We Did a Podcast.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And also kind of a move.
Don't criticize the listener. Thank you.
But also.
Oh my gosh.
So we play a game. We'd pick a set of 2 people, be them real or imaginary, but an imaginary person you have heard of, not like my imaginary friend Fred or something like that. And we pit them against each other in some sort of battle or competition or situation. David, who are our peeps?
Well, our peeps today, and this is a funny one. This is kind of messed up because I did a call out for these a long time ago on the internet, years ago now. This is from Bethany Portillo. She put Unicorn versus Pegasus.
Interesting take.
These aren't even people.
No, those aren't people.
Should we throw this one out? Or should we just try it?
No, but immediately I see an issue with our first predicament.
Okay, well, let's switch. I'm sorry, Betty. I apologize.
You know, Betty, do better.
But a unicorn,
but also thank you.
A unicorn is not a person.
No. Neither is a Pegasus.
Neither is Pegasus. Max Brooks. No, I'm just joking.
I was like, shut up. I almost punched my laptop.
The ghost of Chris Farley
This feels like a me.
versus the ghost of John Belushi.
This is definitely me. I definitely put that one in there.
Okay. 2 funny fat guys, both dead, both SNL.
Both overdosed.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of similarities here.
A lot of them. David, who is more likely to wiggle their way out of a speeding ticket?
Well, neither of these guys are wiggling their way out of anything.
I just like when we were like in Horse World, I was like, they have hooves, they can't drive. And they fly. Like, who cares?
It sounded like Fez for a second. They have hooves, they can drive.
I've been watching a little bit of that 70s show. That might have something to do with it.
That's the problem. I'm on that same thing.
At least I'm not stuck in like Who's Your Mama era Wilder Balderrama.
Oh.
Yo mama. Who's your mama? Yo mama. Who's your mama and what does she do?
I forgot about that.
Never forget.
I'm going to go ahead and say Chris Farley, and I'm just going to say, like, I think John Belushi's a little more abrasive.
I was just going to say the same thing. Like, as the two drug addicted funny fat dudes, he's known for being like the more agreeable. Like, everybody like loves him.
Yeah.
And everybody like who works with John Belushi love John Belushi. But in a situation where you have to be like a little bit yes or no sir with a cop, like they're both pretty likely to go to jail. John Farley's less likely. Because let's
Chris
be
Farley?
honest. Oh yeah, Chris Farley. Let's be honest, they're both carrying.
Oh yeah, that's true, right?
They both have drugs like in their pocket.
In a little necklace that they're wearing, a little capsule necklace. Okay, cool. Well, this is easy.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Chris Farley's more likely.
Let's do
on
the
that
next one, man. What do we got?
Well, David, this next one's your pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Oh. And then you'll get the last in.
The grand finale.
Okay. Okay, you got to give me another one.
What's that one?
It's just profanity aimed at me.
Oh, nice. So that was probably
It's
me
probably
too.
also you.
2 Frank picks in a row. Let's keep the good times rolling. That's funny. I don't even remember what's on there. I'm going to have to take a look.
Well, I hope there's no more because...
There might be. I remember one time we had to brainstorm like quickly and I banged out a couple like good ones and then the rest were stinkers. But I know we've already pulled some of those.
Who will be the next Avenger in the MCU? Well, they're both dead.
Well, ghosts can never be dead, David, because that's what we're talking about right now. We're talking about the ghosts of these men.
Ghost.
Idiot.
I can see John Belushi being the next Iron Man.
And they need somebody to do it. I don't see Chris Farley fitting in anywhere. Are there any like morbidly obese superheroes that I don't know about?
There's the Blob in X-Men. He's a bad guy.
That's a mean name for the fat guy.
Yeah, but he is the Blob, so... Fat shaming wasn't a thing in the 70s, so I don't know what to say. What is this last one nonsense too? Did you already look at it?
Yeah, I did. I cheated. I looked at the last predicament that was in the jar I mean, you guys can't see what's going on, but we had just enough predicaments in the predicament jar to get us through this.
Yeah.
But not because this last one's just blank.
Wow. What do we do?
Oh, we'll figure something out.
Okay, well, let's finish this real quick.
Yeah.
Who's the better MCU character, though? And I feel like this is lopsided because I know Chris Farley more than John Belushi. Like, I've seen a couple John Belushi movies, but it seemed like way more Chris Farley.
John Belushi's characters are always like kind of lovable the way you love like the gross rude guy in the crew. You know what I mean? Like your friend that's just like, you're kind of embarrassed to be with them, but at the same time you're like, love that guy. But Chris Farley's straight up like endearing. You know what I mean?
He is.
And I feel like that's a good quality to have in a superhero.
I think so. I think it goes way better than John Belushi would. In the MCU, like, Chris Farley's more of a Tom Holland than John Belushi is.
And who cares about his weight? He's a ghost now. He's weightless.
Yeah, that's true.
He can do so many things.
He could be the next Ghost Rider. Chris Farley is Ghost Rider.
The ghost of Chris Farley is Ghost Rider.
Okay, well, I think we've settled it. It's Chris Farley. It's Chris Farley going head-to-head into the final round with Rick Sanchez from Rick y Morty. That's the Spanish title.
And then now we're going to pause for some technical difficulties while we figure out what the heck we're going to do about this predicament we found ourselves in.
And we're back.
So when the going gets tough, just go back to your first episode and see what your very first predicament was, I guess.
Because of this unrivaled event. By the way, if you'd like to make suggestions for people's predicaments, please drop them at davidandfrankandbeans@gmail.com or on any of our social media platforms.
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook. Leave a YouTube comment. But yeah, we ran out of predicts for today.
Whoops.
So we went back to episode 1 and we're going to redo our first predicament ever.
AKA EP001.
Exactly. And it is, Who would win a town hall debate at a prison?
Yes. At a maximum security
At
prison.
a maximum security prison.
The ghost of Chris Farley or Rick Sanchez.
First off, can a ghost even participate in a town hall debate?
David, that's racist. Why can't it? If a ghost can talk,
Because ghosts aren't real.
neither is Rick Sanchez, David.
Are you telling me Rick Sanchez isn't real? There's a stronger possibility of Rick Sanchez being real than ghosts.
We're talking about Chris Farley's ghost as a fictional character versus Rick Sanchez as a physical character. So your argument
Your
is
first one he
moot.
said fictional, and the second one he said physical.
Oops.
Wait, which one is it though? Fictional or physical?
Fictional, both of them. They're
Oh,
both
okay.
fictional characters.
Rick Sanchez.
Yeah, and the ghost of Chris Farley.
No, I'm saying Rick Sanchez then. Because he's a criminal. He's going to win over other criminals.
Yeah, he's also very convincing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was gonna argue towards Rick Sanchez anyways. I just had to knock down your point because I hated it.
Your point's ridiculous. Ghosts aren't real. Rick Sanchez in an alternate dimension, though, probably very possible.
They're fictional characters. All these people in the Peeps jar can be fictional or real
No,
characters.
what I'm saying
David.
is in the countless multitude of multiverses, somewhere out there's a real Rick Sanchez, just like in Rick and Morty. But in every multi-universe, ghosts aren't real because they're not real.
That's ridiculous. That's the most ridiculous. I've never hated anything you said more. Like I wasn't even listening and pulled me back in. I was like, oh, I hate you so much.
Yeah, like there's a stronger possibility of a person named Rick Sanchez doing the same thing Rick Sanchez would do in the infinite multiverses than fictional ghosts being real. But anyways, yeah, Rick Sanchez, man, he knows the people. And that's how you win a town hall debate. You got to connect with the people.
And he also just like doesn't care, which gives him like the politician's
Yeah.
edge.
And he's done hard time.
Yeah.
He's going to be respected.
Yep. A lot of these guys probably know him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you probably put some of those guys in there. Like not like in a cop capacity, but like in a double cross capacity.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I bet he would still take it.
Well, this has been another lovely edition of Peeps and Predicaments, and we did a podcast. We're brought
Are
to you
those
by
two
viewers
separate
like
things?
you. Well, this is just like the segment is Peeps and Predicament. The
Nice.
production is we did a podcast.
Yeah.
Our producer is Frank Apodaca. No, sorry.
Thank you for listening to Car Talk.
Yeah. Hey, let us know what we should talk about next. And
Hope everybody's safe out there. Hope
Yeah.
hope you guys aren't going crazy. Hope you're being productive, not gaining a ton of weight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, share, and subscribe. Show it to a friend. Not it, but this podcast or
Yes.
like one of our videos. Don't just show it to people. That's not cool anymore.
wow. Wow.